If you're walking into estate sales and library sales and leaving with scraps, you're doing it wrong. In today's video, you're going to learn how to turn those same sales into gold mines, pulling out rare books, DVDs, and hidden gems worth $50, $100, even $250 or more, while everyone else walks right past them. Today, we're diving into one of the most advanced sourcing trainings we've ever released, taught by our Reselling Freedom coach, Jeff Pike. In case you don't know Jeff is a seasoned Amazon and eBay seller who started with just $100 and a phone, and he's built a serious business flipping media the smart way. In this exclusive 2-hour deep dive training, Jeff breaks down exactly how to dominate estate sales, win at library sales even without a scanner, and find overlooked categories that 99% of sellers skip. Categories like Christian curriculum, African American studies, Native American guides, and profitable sets left behind like Frank Peretti. And hey, if you enjoy this kind of training, imagine having direct access to 500 plus hours of coaching calls, 3 to 5 weekly live Zoom calls, 10 plus expert coaches, and a private community of Amazon sellers who've been in your shoes. That's what Reselling Freedom is all about. Reselling Freedom's not just another course, it's a mentorship, and it works. This is one of the most powerful media sourcing trainings we've ever had. So stick around, take notes, and if you get value from this video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. So without further ado, Jeff, take it away and let's jump in.
Well, hello everybody. Hope everyone can hear me. Welcome to Advanced Library and Estate Sale Tips. Hope everyone has had a good week, prosperous week. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, especially with library and estate sales. Now, one thing, because when I was teaching once a month, a lot of times, since I'm at the end of the month, where I was teaching once a month at the end of the month, I would have a lot of the big estate sales and big library sales I would go to would be the first part of the month. So in a lot of cases, I wouldn't have some of the books that I was talking about. And so I just got through going to 2 library sales and a bunch of estate sales, a bunch here in the town I live in, Amarillo, and then also some in Lubbock, and then some other little towns as well. So got quite a bit of good stuff, and was very happy about that. And the first thing I wanted to talk about was the topic of, and I know this is thrown around quite a bit, but it does really relate to what we're doing. The topic is your mindset going into library or estate sales. One of the first things I want to talk about is what is called imposter syndrome. It's where people feel like they're, quote, an imposter, that I'm not a real whatever. This is especially true of online people that appear online, like YouTube, and other video presentations as well. They feel like, well, I just don't feel like I'm a real whatever. Well, so if you'll look in the dictionary under bookseller, there's not one particular person's picture. In other words, a bookseller or media seller in this particular case could be any gender, tall, short, any race, any education level. So there's really not one. And a lot of the reason I bring that up is because there are people that feel, believe it or not. Now, I have to admit, I went through it for probably a week or two, and then after that, I was over it. But, you're walking in for the first time, you got your scanner, you've never really used it in public, you're trying to, figure out what's what. I understand. Yeah, you can feel a little awkward during that time. But after that, you just kick in and get to work. And I had someone who used to sell books with me actually was discussing this, that she was kind of struggling with the imposter syndrome. And she was like, well, what are people going to think? And I told her, well, they'll think you're a bookseller. So once you tell people that you sell books, of, and you're doing it online, most people are like, oh, okay, and move on. Now, a funny story, I started, I actually started researching selling books and media on Amazon about 4 years, starting about 4 years ago, and actually physically started about 3.5 years ago. And so one of my friends, I was telling him, hey, I'm going to be selling books on Amazon. And he goes, well, I don't really mean to offend you, but that just seems kind of different, kind of weird. Who sells books on Amazon? And I said, well, I do. I'm going to be doing it. Well, I hadn't seen him in a couple years, and actually, one of the places I was going to a library sale happened to be where he lived, and so we had dinner, and he was so excited. He goes, "Oh, I got something to tell you." Okay, so we sit down and start eating dinner, and he goes, "You'll never guess." I was like, "Okay, what?" My boss at work sells books on Amazon. And I was like, oh, good for him. And he goes, I used to think it was so weird. Now I've got my boss and you selling books on Amazon. So uh, don't let the opinions, and he's a good guy. We're still very good friends. But don't let people's opinion about whether you're an online seller or not, or a reseller, affect your outlook, affect how you're uh, about yourself. Now I realize everybody has to start somewhere. And I started just like everyone else, literally. Well, I started with $100 and a dream. That was about it. And I barely could afford at that time to have Scout IQ on my phone. And I had this little bitty iPhone that's about like this big. And I had moved from another town to here, where I currently am in Amarillo, and had spent a ton of money relocating here, and then found a job, and then my hours got cut. And so it was really tight. So the most that I had, once I set up my Amazon account and I had Scout IQ, and then I found a listing software to use. Uh, I had anywhere, depending on the week, anywhere from 25 to $100 that I could spend on books. That's it. So I had to get really creative, work really hard, and I had to make every book purchase I made, for lack of better terms, count. So that really sounds like a downer, but actually that served me well starting out that way, because I had to really focus on value, and how, and talking to people at yard sales and garage sales, estate sales, library sales. Well, if I buy 10 of them, will you give them to me for $5, instead of $10 or whatever? And start trying to work out deals. And that's also a skill that you can develop over time. And you'd be surprised if you just ask people, um, for a deal. Don't do it in a rude way, but if you've got a lot of books, just say, hey, I've got quite a few here. Could you make me a deal? So instead of them all hardbacks, I'll just give you an example. Instead of hardbacks being $3, and let's say paperbacks $1, what if they just said, okay, well, um, that all those together would be 60. How about if we do them for 40? Great. You just saved $20. So having there is no such thing as the typical uh, book reseller, and especially if you have gone to any of the books convention. I went to Books and Beyond in uh, last fall in Las Vegas, and none of the people look the same, all different kinds of backgrounds, all different education levels, all different levels of business. Some of them had multi-million-dollar, uh, and by that I mean seven-figure. That's 10 million or more book sales. Other people had much more modest sales. So there, in other words, there's not a typical bookseller, and you don't need to worry about that. Number two, so the first thing we talked about was imposter syndrome. just get in there, get to work, and start getting books. Second one is make connections uh, with the individual, especially the librarians for library sales, the people that run estate sales, that run those companies. Introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Jeff. I'm a book buyer. I buy books and DVDs and CDs and albums, and occasionally will buy other things as well. And so let them know up front who you are, what you're doing. Now, interestingly enough, you can. It's a little premature. You've only been talking to them for a minute to go straight for the thing that you would really love is to be able to be part of a pre-sale, meaning to allowing you to come in before the general public does. I have that privilege with probably 8 to 10 of the companies here in town. But that didn't happen overnight. And even after I established relationships with some of the people, they were still not willing to let me do that. And in the past 6 months, I've had two of them that were hardcore no's turn into, yeah, why don't you come on over? There's so many books, we're overwhelmed. Why don't you come over and look at them? Well, when you get first crack at them, as opposed to having to come in, with the general public, that gives you a great advantage and obviously a lot more profitable books that you're going to get. Um, so now the third one, and this one seems incredibly obvious, but I have to remind myself of this constantly. And that is one. This is one thing that you can do that you don't have to spend any money on. You don't have to get any more training on. You don't have to, higher education, enroll in all different classes, have a mentor, anything like that. All you have to be able to do is be thorough. And the reason I bring that up is because I was in a different town at there were three large estate sales that particular week, and this is last week. And I went in there. Now, it was quite a drive. It was about 2 hours from where I live to hit those three estate sales. And I was hitting them on Friday. Now, understand they opened on Thursday. So, yes, there are going to be people that have already looked over the books or, whatever, or the china or the furniture or whatever. So, they've already had one full day of people coming through. So, that's one thing to consider. So I went to the first one, and so I walked around, found a few books, and had maybe two or three books. But this is the part about being thorough. And by being thorough, especially when you're in an estate sale, but it also applies to library sales too. So when I come into an estate sale, I'm trying to figure out especially if they've advertised that they had books, I'm trying to figure out where they're at first. So, but what I'm doing before I leave there, I will have gone in every room, looked around thoroughly in each room, and if they have the garage open, I will go in and look in the garage, look all through the garage, go through every bedroom, living room, dining room, wherever, go through every part of it. You would be shocked at how many times I have found books that even I've had resellers go in before me that they never saw them. Why? Because they walked right up to wherever the books were, which I would have done anyway. And so they just walked right up to the books, looked over, maybe got, let's say, 10 books and left. And then I come in behind them, and because I'm thorough, many times I'll find another set of it might be another bookcase or more boxes of books uh, that they didn't even know existed. And there is a balance, and I understand this. so let's say that last week where there were three big sales. Let's say in that particular town, instead of there being three, there are 10 of them. Well, and I'm only there for one day. And most of them are going to be open, say, 9 to 4, 9 to 5. So that immediately is, I'm still going to be thorough, but it's going to be at a lot quicker pace. And I will scan less, be looking for books that I know are profitable or potentially could be profitable as I'm looking to try and minimize the time I'm there, but maximize what I'm doing. But in this particular case, there's only three sales, and all of them were open from 9 to 5, so I had plenty of time. So anyway, the first sale, like three books, okay, and I could tell. Yes, you looked at the bookcase, and you could tell, people had bought books, and so I happened to go upstairs, and there was a walk-in closet to the bedroom. And so I walked in there and happened to look, and there looked like a small kind of bookcase in there. And I went in there, and lo and behold, it was a literal treasure trove of DVDs, many of them brand new, unopened. I bought, I think it was a total of 12 of them. One of them was a rare series that sold for over $100. So that was amazing. Then there were some other books that were in there. So instead of walking out with three items and moving on, because I just took that little extra time to walk in, take a complete look around in each room, and in that closet, that's where I spotted all those DVDs, and it was very obvious. Hardly anything had been touched on that shelf. So literally, any resellers that had been in there before me had not seen that, and so it was all mine. So I ended up leaving. There were a few more books in that rack that I got as well. So I ended up with about 20 items from that sale. So then I went to the second sale, and again, now it was a little bit different in that they had a huge, two big bookcases in their living room, and that was it. However, that's what I say, that was it. Upon further walking around the house, by saying that was it, if you looked at their pictures that they posted about the estate sale, those are the only books they showed. But I went into a back room, and there was another bookcase of books. So I ended up out of that, and again, these had already been quote picked over. Again, I about 20 some odd books out of that sale. So now we're up to 40, and part of the reason we're up to 40 is no other reason, no real great skill, no fancy software. It's just being thorough and following through. So the last house we went to, you couldn't really call it a house. It was a mansion. It was a multi-million-dollar house, huge house. And so it had like 5 or 6 bookcases there in the living area and in the kitchen that ran, and then a big one in the kitchen. Well, it was very obvious that those, for the most part, have been completely picked over. So I went through probably somewhere in the area of 125, 150 books, and I think I only got 5 or 6. Well, then I went up. There was, come to find out, there was an office upstairs. Well, so I go to the office, and there's books just everywhere. And a telltale sign, just letting you know, that you can tell when a reseller's been there, is when you see books. I'm not talking about just thrown everywhere, but they're in little stacks and they're turned upside down where you can see the barcode. If you see that, you know for sure there's been a reseller there. Well, there were probably 150 to 200 books there. I scanned about 100 of them and had one book out of that 100 that was profitable. So I was like, okay, we're done. There's no reason. And then the ones that were left, visually, I knew weren't going to be that profitable. So that seemed like a bomb pretty much. Like, well, whatever. So I am getting ready to, that office that was upstairs, there was a big staircase uh, that I had to go up to get to that office. I happened to look, and it's one of those mansions where the second floor is huge. And I happened to look across from the top of the staircase across, and I saw kind of, you could see it, but it was kind of out of the way, another bookcase. And so I went over there and started crushing it. So now, in other words, again, whoever the resellers were before me, they got the first floor, and then they went up to that office, and they didn't bother to check or look. And I was going to check all the rooms anyway. But I want, so long story short, I ended up from that sale, ended up leaving with over 40 books. So for the whole thing, the whole trip, uh, probably in excess of, counting DVDs, CDs, books, probably somewhere in the area 80 to 90. So, really good deal. But the only thing that got me that was being thorough. Now, I wanted to show you some of the items. Um, I got a bunch of these, and you may not be familiar with this particular group of publications, but they are gold if you find them. Uh, so, and a little fun fact. So I have a bachelor's degree in journalism, and I have a master's degree in Christian education, specifically on curriculum development. Well, so I'm going to see if you can see this. This is a book on, or this is a homeschool book on the book of Revelation from the Bible. But the point I want to point out to you is this symbol here on the back, Abeka, Abeka. That is, if not the most popular, one of the most popular homeschooling uh, publishers. Now, interestingly enough, you see this barcode. This barcode will not scan either on Scout IQ, Scoutly, or using the scanner that's in your Amazon seller app. It's their own barcode. So you have to face scan these. But I went through, they had a huge pile of them. They had a bookcase full of them. And then they had another boxes of them. And so that was where I got all the where I got all these Abeka books. And they are, so for example, this is very hard to see, but right up here in the top, it's, well, there's a glare. But anyway, it says 11, 12. So this is junior and senior high school level uh, for homeschooling on the book of Revelation. So that one cabinet or bookcase that I told you I saw, I was getting ready to go downstairs and then realized I hadn't seen everything. And I looked up and saw that case. It had a lot of art, it had a lot of photography, and it also had reference materials, biblical reference materials. And that's where I started crushing it. Now, here's another thing is a lot of what I'm telling you right now, 99.99999% of resellers, if they see photography, art, Bibles, they're out of there. They won't even scan them. And I've seen that over and over in book sales everywhere. And they're literally a gold mine. So in art, keep in mind what you're looking for. Now, most people, when I say art, they're thinking, okay, Monet or some famous painter or whatever, and it's a book about, that has all their paintings. Well, where I'm really more referring to is art how to, meaning how to draw, how to paint, how to do watercolors, how to do pottery, how, any those type of things. Here is an example of one. It's called flame working, creating glass beads, sculptures, and functional objects. So here is this. And as I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this sells for about $30 used uh, on Amazon. And so this is an example of, one of them that was just completely ignored. So when you see, yes, I fully acknowledge, I don't know how many times I've gone through art collections, meaning name a famous artist, and it's got, them in a book, and they're, quote, coffee table books, and they're not hardly worth the paper they're printed on. They're pretty. You want to put them on your coffee table, great. But for our purposes, whether it's eBay or Amazon or Etsy or anything else, they virtually have no value. But what I'm talking about is the how to's. Learn how to. Another one, learn how to draw cartoons. Learn how, all sorts of things of how to's. Those are very valuable. Um, Let me see here. Now, this is also a kind of an unusual book, but this is also to a point. When you're looking for photography, you're specifically want to look. Now, there are a few, not many. There are a few how-to photography books that will make you a little bit money. For the most part, most of them aren't that profitable. That being said, where you can find a really tremendous value is a book that is a collection by a specific photographer. And so the rarer they are, or the more not commonplace they are, the greater potential for them to be profitable. Also, now this is hilarious. Um, this is a photo collection. It says Kenny Rogers America. So that, yes, you're like, Kenny Rogers, isn't he a country artist? Yes. So this is a photographic album of photos that Kenny Rogers took, of all things. And so this one also sells for about $34. So what you're looking for is, you're not looking for, oh, like, for example, the time life, the 20th century, and typically those have no value. What you're looking for are individual photographers that feature their collections. Those typically are going to be real valuable. Um, let's see. So here's another example from that same shelf. This is uh, a Christian book. It is a book on a lady that was an evangelist at the turn of the 19th century, like early 1900s, or somewhere in that area. Her name was Maria Woodworth Etter. It says the complete collection of her life teachings. Again, sells for just about $30. And so to sum all that, as far as the estate sale part of it. Oh, the other thing, let me look at my notes here. A couple of things. I've mentioned this before, but it is very much worth looking into. Now, obviously, most of you, or none of you, I don't know exactly where each of you live. I live in Texas. So obviously, there's what's called Texana, which is Texas history, Texas customs, all sorts of different things. That is a really good seller on Amazon, those particular items. But to the point, I was talking at the Books and Beyond conference to a couple of people who don't live in Texas, but live in other parts of the country, and their local history books also sell well. So I'm not 100%, depending on where you live, but they're more than likely, like a perfect example. I haven't researched this, but I'm just throwing this out. So let's say you live in Michigan, and there's a book about the history of UP being the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, the history of UP, or it had the early political leaders of UP. Well, that's specific enough and just a little bit off the beaten path that could be a very, very good book to sell. Also, there are, which I don't have here in the little pile I do have, you'll find also at times that Native American books can be quite valuable. I found a book, and it was the Collector's Guide to Indian Arrowheads. Yes, I'm not making that up. And sold it for $80. For $80. And there's several of them I've sold. Native American, Plains Indian dress. I'm not talking about like a woman's dress. It's like what they wear to powwows in certain seasons. And that book now wasn't outrageously valuable, but it was still well worth the time. Also, you can find books that the one of the things. Hi, Judith. Let me finish this sentence. I'll be right with you. Um, Another just absolute hotbed of books that are pretty much ignored are anything to do with African American studies. It could be African American politics, music, entertainment, all different topics of having to do with African American issues or celebrating African American personalities or leaders. I went to a library sale last fall and found about somewhere in the area 20 to 25 of them. And of that group, two-thirds of them were good, which is just amazing. In fact, I was scanning and it was just like bing, bing, bing. I was just like, woo! Didn't want to say anything, but yeah. So that's also something to look for. So let me see if we can get, yeah. So, yeah. So if you could go on and unmute yourself. Hi, Judith.
Hey, there's competition tonight. There's big competition. That's why nobody's here. There are just
Oh,
three of us. The big boys are having a meeting and it started. So anyways, I thought you were canceled. Reselling
Oh,
Freedom.
okay.
Okay, with Mike and Avery and Steve. So just where are you finding the Christian books and the books about art? Were those from an estate sale or those from a library or just
Yes, both actually.
both?
So now to be very, very clear, I don't find as much art books per se
Mhm.
when I'm out. Usually, when you find those at an estate sale or garage sale, it's somebody that did art or was an art teacher or something like that. And so now I have seen it, but it's very rare. So let's say, just an example is an estate sale, and they've got like 3 or 4 big bookcases full of books. Well, I might find 1 or 2 out of that huge amount that have anything to do with art. I mean, very rare. However, if I walked into a house because I've asked, they say, "Oh, wow, you bought a lot of art books," and then I'd ask, "Well, were they, did they do art? Were they artists? Did they teach?" And then you find out, "Oh yeah, she was the art teacher down here at the high school." And so there's a gazillion, art books. And you can find them also in library sales. Um, and the art library sales, the thing about the art books and library sales is they're kind of uh, unpredictable. Let's put it that way. Sometimes you'll find a bunch. Sometimes you won't find hardly any at all.
I went through hundreds just before Christmas. There was a big sale here in Virginia, hundreds of art books, and I found very little. So what you said seemed to have some validity. If it's a how-to book, there weren't how-to books; they were art books.
Right.
And I had
Right.
almost no very little success. Found a um Arabic carpets, and that sold. One book
Hmm.
on, how really made in Turkey and stuff. That book sold, but it was slim pickings. So this is good to hear. That's been
Yeah.
my
So
experience.
so yeah, it's so to be clear, I don't see a bookcase of 200 art books and it's like, wow, it's time to scan every one of those individually. Typically I'm looking for obscure artists, people that aren't, you know, like if you see nothing wrong with them, but like you see Monet, Van Gogh, or whatever, those are
Awesome. That's a good tip.
typically very mainline, and there's a gazillion books about them. But like there is a, gosh, I forgot his name. Okay, hopefully it'll come to me. There's a Texas artist here, which kind of falls under Texana, but it's also art. And there was a book that he put out of his Western paintings. And it's not a huge profit book. It'll sell like $40, $50 maybe at the most, but it'll sell pretty consistently. And that's an example of, okay, that's somebody that's a little off the grid that people in Texas know about. They're interested in that book, but for the most part, somebody like you're in Virginia, they'd be like, "Who is? I have no idea who this person is." So, but yeah,
So
how to?
is the rank on that pretty good, though, Jeff, or is it not very good, but you know it's going to sell?
Let's take a look through the amazing. Uh, Let me see here. I'm going to get on Scoutly. Yeah. So let's see. Kenny Rogers, his art book. Well, of course, I had it on silent. I wanted you to hear the ka-ching. That's half the fun. Okay,
Yeah.
let me start with the other one. Okay, I got my thing turned up again so you can hear the ka-ching. All right, let's see here. Ta-da! Okay, so this is the uh, flame working one
Yes.
here, and it's rank 1.5 million. So
Okay. Yeah.
good strong rank there. Let's see, Kenny Rogers, his photography book. Rank of 1.3 million. Sales score of 18. So good, strong
Interesting.
numbers. And
Okay.
do what?
I just said interesting. It's,
So,
yeah.
and here is animals, a copyright free illustrations of mammals, birds, fish, insects, a pictorial archive from the 19th century sources. So this is 19th century, kind of off the beaten path. Yep, here we go. And it's selling for about 22.
And
300K rank, 62 sales score. So
whoa.
those are
And that's
all,
used. We're talking used, right? These are used books.
yeah,
Yeah.
these are used.
Yeah. Okay.
So did I answer your question? Are we
I
good?
think so. Is it,
Oops,
would,
sorry.
I don't want to interrupt in any way what you're doing, but are you going to talk more about Christian books, or have you covered
Yes.
that? Because I could.
I'm gonna go into a little bit more detail on that. In
Awesome.
fact, in
Thank
fact, that's
you,
where, let
Jeff.
me see where I'm at. Yep, that's what the next one I've got to cover. So perfect timing. So, in looking for Christian education materials, and I don't know if when you joined but uh, I have a bachelor's degree in journalism. I was a TV producer for about 10 years, and then got a master's degree in Christian education. So uh, my major was in curriculum development. So it's no surprise that when I see all these Christian related items, it's like ding ding. Like I could name uh, a zillion publishers, Asbury, Concordia, David C. Cook, Thomas Nelson, on and on and on, because that's what I majored in. So, um, and especially just as a side note to people, um, I've had people, to my benefit, not to theirs. There was a gentleman that was a retiring minister here in town, and he called someone. He was interested in selling a bunch of his books. He was going to be moving to an independent living and he facility, and he could have realistically. They said he could have about 100 books, which is like kind of a small bookcase size. Well, he had like 500 some odd, all different types of stuff. And so there's another guy in town who was called first, and he turned it down. No, I'm not interested. And I went in there and just crushed it. It was just amazing. Book after book that, so not an exaggeration, the total haul of all the books value wise was about somewhere between $3,500 and $4,000. It was just an absolute amazing deal.
Pay for those, Jeff, or was this they just wanted to get rid of them?
No, I had to pay for them.
Okay,
Large ones, the really large ones, or if they were a part of a reference series, big books, part of a reference series. I think were five, regulars were three, and paperbacks were one. But still, like
very
some of those series that I sold, or some of the books that were part of some of those series, sold for over 150 bucks a piece. So you're paying $5 and selling them for 150. So it's like, so you're just like, yeah, whatever. Like the guy that was with me is like, don't you want to negotiate? No, this is great. It ain't broke. I'm not going to fix it. We're just going to make these people happy, pay them full price, and I'm going to take a zillion books and be happy. But anyway, go ahead.
it's kind of exciting to hear this. When there's a series, you're saying there might be 5 books or something, but
Right.
even one book in the series did not need its fellows. It didn't need its cousins and sisters and brothers. Just one book in the series sold by itself, individually. It was valuable.
Correct. Now,
Gotcha. I just want to see if I
here's
heard that.
kind of a curve. It's kind of unusual. Let's say there are, just for whatever reason, there's 6 books in the series. And like you're at an estate sale, or like my scenario, or in a library sale, and you look and there's supposed to be 6 and there's 4 of them. Wah, wah, wah. So a lot of times people just move on. Go ahead and scan them individually,
Gotcha.
because typically of the 6, there's going to be 1 or 2 that are in high demand that people want, and then the other 4, yeah, not so much. And so you can scan those and
Do you remember
end up
any of
getting
the
good value.
series names, Jeff? I mean, just I used to sell a lot of God books, and
Hmm.
then I stopped. I just because I couldn't find them. Couldn't find, I don't, for whatever reason. But I know you named some of the publishers, but were there anything that just stood out to you that about these books that you could say that there's
Um, you
like
will
Genesis, or it's on David, or it's
well. One thing, another thing, to your point, you need to be looking for. Uh, so I pretty much, because what I know. In other words, I sell what I know. I
yeah,
don't go, and this isn't an insult to anyone else's beliefs, or so no one that's listening, I don't want them to take it that way. But I don't sell anything that's Muslim, or Hindu or whatever. That's not my thing. I've got a degree in Christian curriculum, so I know that really well. And so I
yeah,
don't really want to spend a lot of time having to learn, okay, who are the big Hindu people, or
gotcha.
who are the big Hindu publishers? And plus, being in the area I'm at, kind of Texas, Oklahoma, and area, kind of the Bible Belt area, you typically don't see a lot of those, or New Age type books. So, in my mind, to spend a lot of time to that when I rarely see them, where and the reverse when I see a ton of them and something I know, it's just a lot easier for me. But um, so you're so one group that sells tremendously well that people also find are surprised by are a lot of Catholic Bibles, Catholic, any study aids that are related to Catholicism. Very, very popular. I've sold a lot of those. Um, the Also niched, by niched I mean really small groups. Now this isn't a small group, but in the area of the country I'm in, it's a small group. There's different parts of the country they're big, but for example, Greek Orthodox. There's very
Mhm.
few in this part of the country. There's a ton of them in other different parts of the country. But for example, you run onto something that's Greek or Orthodox study material. That can be really good. Um, and then as far as you're asking about the study aids, so you're looking for, again, homeschool materials. Abeka is the leading publisher. And
Is
you'll
it
have to do what?
Ubeka? How do you spell?
A is an apple,
Mhm.
B is in boy, E, K as in Kevin,
Okay.
and A is an apple, Abeka.
Oh, Becca, thank you. Okay,
Now,
Becca.
I don't know when you joined, but this is an example of one.
Yeah,
This is the homeschooler. This is the book of Revelation for grades 11 and 12. You don't, you'll see a barcode here. You can't scan this. This is their own barcode. So we've talked about having to face scan. So all the
got it.
Abeka stuff, you've got to face scan. There's no, you're not going to find any ISBNs, ASINs, nothing in this. So you have to face scan it. But
Thank you. Thank you
now
for
I
that.
will say this, um, and this is free. I don't want to do it at this particular point because I have sold books on eBay and there's nothing wrong with it. I've sold a lot of books on eBay. But if you want to if you're on eBay and you're thinking, what is something that if I ran into it immediately, I should just swap up? So this is this is the student edition here of this particular item. They also make a teacher's edition. They make a quiz edition, and they make what they call a test key or the answers to it. So there's four different with it. So if you found this, four of these, and either this is completely unmarked and really good shape. But let's say you found four of them in good shape, you could easily sell the group of four for $100 or more.
Oh,
Literally.
wow. We're talking very good, no marks, clean books, right? Clean pages.
Even if you had there's just a few pencil marks or a few things filled in, some is good or acceptable. But if you had all four of those together as a set
As
and
a
you put them
set.
on eBay, because I've done it before, people literally snatch them the second they go up because it's hard to find all four of them
Okay.
together and reasonably priced for
So all
homeschool.
four, what are you saying is the all four? That was
So
not clear.
the
The
student
teacher,
edition, the
the
teacher's
student
edition,
edition, the
the
teacher's edition.
exam, and the exam answers.
I got it. Now I gotcha. Okay.
So
Yeah.
all those. And
So
so that uh, Bibles, there are some Bibles that um, you about drop your phone when you scan how much they're worth, and then other ones not worth much at all. A couple of them that come to mind, forgive because of course when we end it, I'll be like, oh man, I meant to tell them and I can't remember it. But anyway,
I have a question before you go any further, because I think it
yeah,
matters. Okay, when we're talking Bibles, my Bible, nobody's gonna buy it. It's in pink and green
right,
and purple and blue, and it has all notes and it does.
right.
Nobody would buy it. So you're talking, when you talk about Bibles, are you talking about unmarked with maybe no name in the front of it? Or there are
Now,
times I've sandpapered names, very soft sandpaper, got names out of books. And I could,
so I will let's say There's a Bible and it's leather and it's Thomas Nelson and it's just an amazing book, but it's got somebody's name on the front. Well, I'll list it depending on the rest of the book. If there's nothing written inside of it, meaning like this book belongs to, and there's not highlighting and a bunch of writing in there,
You
all they
mean
have is
gold
the
leaf?
name.
You mean
Yeah,
like it says Jeff Pike on it or something in gold leaf? Is that what you, okay, just checking
yes,
to, yeah,
and
okay.
nothing else wrong with it. I'll list it as good, and I've rarely had anybody return them.
But you
So
say, gold leaf
yeah,
name on, or grave
yeah,
name on,
I'll make a note, and they're saying gold leaf name on the front. Rest of no other markings or whatever. Now,
yeah.
if let's say I have that same Bible, it's got Jeff Pike right here,
Mhm.
belongs to Jeff Pike, and maybe it's got a few highlights or a bit of writing. I'll list it as acceptable, drop the
Mm.
price some, list it as acceptable, and most people's reaction, well, I bet you get a lot of those returned. No, because some of these Bibles, people don't really understand unless they've gone to look for high end, top shelf Bibles in leather, how much they run for new. Some of them are in excess of $250 new. So if somebody's like, hey, I can get that Bible, yeah, there's a little bit of highlighting in it. Yeah, I've got to put up with that other stuff. But if I bought that for $80, that'd be amazing. You know.
Is there, are there any kind of New King James, Living NIV? Is there anything that you found the Passion Translation that sells better in Bibles?
Not really. Pretty much all of them, in some form or fashion, will sell
And so,
pretty well. One thing that happened, oh Lord, I'm trying to remember the name of the movie. It was about the Jesus movement. Kelsey Grammer was starred in it. Jesus movement, for those you don't know, or basically to sum up a huge movement in Christian American Christianity, the hippies got saved. Basically, that's the whole summation of it. So in the late '60s, early '70s to about the mid '70s, tons of hippies came to Christ. So it was a movie about that. Well, so what that started was some nostalgia about that era, and so there were a lot of uh, some of you may have seen these old, and they had pictures of young people from the early '70s, and it was called The Way, and it was a living translation. Well, those shot up in value. You usually could sell them for 15 to 20. For about a 2 or 3 month period, they shot up to like $40 or $50 a piece in really good shape. A lot of the what they call Jesus movement recording artists, their albums went from nothing to just skyrocketed. Um, but so yeah, Bibles you'll have to take individually. Um, Now, one little tip: the older the Bible, the less chance you're going to find an ACID on it, or an ISBN, I should say. So you'll either have to face scan it or face scan the spine of it. Now, with Nelson Bibles, Thomas Nelson Bibles, they also published a Bible called the really older Bibles called Regency. So you'll see Thomas Nelson and Regency used interchange. But at the very bottom of the Bible, I don't have one here with me, but I'll just grab this book. Um, so here at the bottom, it'll usually have a 3-digit number and then the color. So let's say it's a black leather Regency Bible, probably about 40 years old, published by Thomas Nelson, but it says Regency on it. It'll say like 335 BG, BG meaning burgundy, or 335 BK, which means
black.
black, or BR for brown. Um, so what you do in that particular case, if you can't face scan the front or the spine, you type in Regency Thomas Nelson 335 BG, and then
Mm.
uh, in Amazon on your app, and it'll pull up, and
Is
you
the
can
number on the Bible, the 335 is actually on the Bible?
yes, you'll see
Okay.
that number at the very bottom of the spine, and that's true of a lot of the newer Thomas Nelson, the new Thomas Nelson Bibles. I'm looking around. I've got like a zillion Bibles of my own. Of course, when I'm trying to find one, in a Thomas Nelson, I can't. I'm trying to see. Okay, bear with me. Let's see. No, I don't see it. But anyway, that's one way you can track those down. So you have the Bibles, you have study aids. You also have, so this, now pretend this isn't the homeschooling thing. So there are a lot of publications identical to this that are for Sunday school, adult Sunday school, children's Sunday school, and the study guides to those or the teacher's edition of those can be really valuable. People are looking for those. Also, like I said, Sunday school materials. Another thing I sell a ton of that nobody wants to buy, and I'm just astounded, is hymnals. Hymnals sell amazingly well. Um, so you'll have to do is face scan them.
Even find hymnals. I don't see hymnals anywhere,
Right.
Jeff.
So you'll find these primarily at estate sales. When
Yeah.
someone older dies, typically
Mhm.
that's where you'll see them the most. What's funny is even like library sales, a lot of the libraries are reluctant to take them because it's like, well, nobody wants them. So,
Exactly.
so you will. So just off the top of my head, the Baptist hymnal. There's a Baptist hymnal
Baptist.
from the mid 70s. And I can't think of the exact name of it. That one, I sell that one. I literally, they rarely stay more than a month. They just sell and sell and sell. There's other ones. There's one, and I can't think, gosh, drawing a blank. Um, it's written by, it's a compilation by the Gaithers. If people don't know who the Gaithers are, they're one of the more famous
I used to live in
gospel.
Texas, so I know
Yeah.
who the Gaithers are. Yeah.
So their hymnal very very popular. Very
Wow.
so there are also ones by Methodists, Assembly of God, Lutheran, uh, Episcopal.
And
Also,
you're saying they'll sell for $20 or something? I mean, what is
yeah,
your
usually somewhere in the sweet spots, usually between $20 and $30. And
wow?
now also this is amazing. So this is if you ever see this, hop on it. So remember I told you about I just mentioned the Baptist hymnals
Mhm.
for all of you. So I was in a Baptist youth group, so I've seen tons of Baptist hymnals just when I was much younger. Of course, that was before electricity and running water, but I digress. But so as a companion to those, the regular pew hymnals, they also published the companion for piano players, the companion for organ players, and the
Oh,
companion for the actual worship leader, whoever he or she was. If you find those, I've sold those individually, and some of those Methodists, some of those will sell for over $100.
okay. Could you say exactly what the title of a book like that is? Is it Baptist Companion for,
It'll look identical. The cover will look like, the Baptist hymnal. It'll look
okay?
identical to the actual
Mhm.
hymnal, except typically it's bigger, because
Mhm.
it's like it's got punched holes for pages that you can turn. And so instead of it being,
But it's
like,
not in a it's not in a binder, a 3-ring binder. It's in a book,
yes,
right?
yeah, well, it can be both. It can either be in a book or it can be in a 3-ring binder.
And what is it actually called? If I see
Uh,
a table, it would be called the Baptist Hymnal
and then
Companion.
you'll see something like organ accompaniment or piano accompaniment, or some of them have voice, piano, and organ accompaniment all combined. So those typically are going to be very, very
And
profitable. And you can
even if
also
it's
put them on
used,
eBay if they have too high a score. and you're worried about that, and you saw on eBay or Etsy or whatever, you can just put them on there and they'll sell eventually because there's so
What
few of them.
what about some people who do music, put um, piano, I mean, they'll put notes on above the music to sales. Is that okay if there's some markings in them?
Yeah, usually you'll see most, the vast majority of those people will make their notes in pencil, not in pen.
So true, so true. So you did, but they'll
So
still,
So yeah, they have the option. They just need an eraser and they can erase them if they want. If
okay.
there's a lot of pen writing, I'll make a note. A notes in margin, pen. Notes in margin
Yes.
or something
Yeah.
like that, so people know that.
And you're
Um,
selling these merchant fulfilled, or are you actually shipping them FBA?
FBA.
You
But
are
if
shipping.
you but if somebody wanted to do those merchant fulfilled or eBay, that'd be fantastic because you could just put them out there. And let's say, because and I've actually sold one that had a 6.5 million rank on it, but there was a backstory to that. The At that time, the both the merchant fulfilled and the FBA price were outrageously too high. How they
Mhm.
just go through the ceiling.
Mhm.
So, and it was one of those Baptist hymnal accompaniment books. So I looked in Keepa, and it had sold like gangbusters for between 80 and like say $120. And so the buy box and all those others had gone up over 200. Well, that's why it was 6.5 million. Nobody in their right mind is going to spend $250 for that. So I put it at about $85, $90, and it sold in about a month because somebody, and historically had been proven it would sell for that. And
Mhm.
so somebody was looking and was like, oh, wow, look, there's they're thinking some
Um,
idiot selling it for $80. Let's scoop it up. When in actuality, I'm the only one of the group that is anywhere
well,
close to historical price.
yeah.
So anything to do with, so to kind of review that. So, uh, homeschool materials, Bibles, study aids, Sunday school materials, hymnals, and also song book collections, meaning best contemporary gospel hits of 2016 or whatever. Or it could be by a publishing company like the Gaithers. They have a series. I'm not trying to nerd out on this, but they have a series you may have seen. It's called Homecoming, and they invite older gospel performers to come in. Well, they have a ton of songbooks that go along with those. Those are gold. Like, trust me, you see one and that somebody's offering it for $2, just snag it. Just don't even worry about scanning it. So those are gold. But there could be other groups like Maranatha. I'm trying to think of all the different groups. But anyway, they'll have their a compilation, their top 100
Mhm.
songs or whatever. Those sell real well. And really old hymnals and compilations will sell as well, um, because there are a lot of people out there, especially that are doing uh, Christian work, and a lot of those things are out of print, and especially if they're, for example, I'm trying to think of one. Of course, now I can't think of the top of my head. There's some of them that I found. Uh, it's a little bitty one. So this is a fairly small envelope. That's what I got my notes on. It's a little bit smaller than this, and it's 100 top country and western gospel songs. Looks like and it's a spiral, and you would think, okay, and it's probably 50 or more years old, and you're thinking, talk about, no offense to anybody, but I'm talking from a bookseller's look. People are like, what a turd. Move on. I've scanned those, and some of those will sell for upwards of 40 or $50 a piece. So,
It's out of
it
print, obviously out of print. And
right, completely out of print,
yeah.
and if it especially has a link to a group or a denomination,
Mhm.
That's really a big selling point. Um, and
Country, Western, gospel
yeah,
songs.
country and western, all the as crazy as it seems. That you know, I need next go around if I remember, need to bring some of these so people can see some of them. Now I did take that back. I think a couple of months ago I did show some of them. Let me see what else. Okay, one other thing. Then we're going to go real quickly to library sales. I went to two library sales. One I had not been to before. One I had been to before, and the one I had been before. That's when I'm talking about advanced advice. So if you've been to a library sale before, the benefit is you know the layout, you know where they put everything. And so then you can really make plans on where you're going to go. Um, so this library sale I went to on Friday, it actually worked out good. I didn't enjoy this part of it. So we get there and it's supposed to start at 6:30 and it's pouring rain and it's freezing cold and just nasty, horrible. And it was wonderful. I was just almost laughing the whole time because usually the last fall, there were probably 80 people in line to get into this thing. And this time there was maybe 20, if that. Uh,
Yeah.
so I was just inside laughing like, yes, rain, throwing snow, hail, biblical plagues,
Yeah.
whatever, just keep them all away. And but because I had been there before, I knew exactly what areas I was going to hit. And so on the couple of things on library sales, the if possible, hit many library sales have friends of the library sales. Now, what that is the sale before the general public sale. So a lot of times you can buy a friend of the library card and it's $5 or $10, but that is worth its weight in gold because if you can get in that night before everybody else, you're going to score so many more books. Not even funny.
Do,
So
does your
go ahead.
library let you scan when the library sale here is huge, and it's you get in 2 hours on a Friday, and then on Saturday you get 2 hours, but you are not allowed to have a scanner. So I haven't gone and you have to pay $20 so you get
$20.
$20 for 4 hours if you were
So
there.
what I would do now, how much do they charge? Do they charge like per bag or per box or something like that?
They
Or
charge per book. And so the books, they charge per book for 7 days, they're full price, and then on the weekend, they're half price.
gotcha. Well, what I would do, I have been in one of those, which is really, really a funny story about that. So I went in this sale and they quote banned scanners. And
Yes.
so this lady went and complained. Now I'd been there probably an hour, hour and a half, and I had about probably 20 books at that point. And the librarian, well, you can't have the scanner here. You're just buying all the books. And I said, well, you advertised that there were over 3,000 books, and I've got 20 of them. Kind of a long silence.
You were scanning, Jeff, even though it said no scanners
No,
all.
they didn't post that. That was
Okay.
just something miraculously I was supposed to pick up, that
Oh,
it,
oh, yes, from the waves. Yeah, the airwaves.
and so I said, well, I've been here over an hour and I've got 20 books and I'm looking at her without a scanner and she's got more than I do. Boy, that lady didn't have a whole lot of ground to stand on. And I said, I'm looking for very specific books. I'm a buyer and I'm a collector. So I'm looking for very specific books. So I'm not going to buy a ton of books. I'm looking for very specific ones. She said, okay, since you didn't know and no one told you, you will make an exception for this time. and I ended up leaving with about 50 books. I still did well, but now another little weird thing, quirk that they will do. This one library sale I went to is no scanners, but you can buy a friend of the library membership,
Yep.
and you can for $10 buy the right to scan.
Oh,
So
come
for
on.
additional $10, you can buy the
Uh,
right to scan.
the scan, that is a new one. Oh,
So I
wow.
was
Maybe
like,
I'll
yeah,
ask them.
I was like, okay, wow, really? But I paid it. And so that was good because, I had a couple people come up to me and complain, and you're not supposed to be scanning here. I said, look there, you can pay $10 and I can scan all I want. And then,
How
they,
much did you pay altogether for those few hours to scan and before everybody else? How much was it? Was the membership $10 plus $10?
yeah, I would say it was probably about 1,500 total, give or take a little
But
bit.
but how much did you pay on top of you paid what was the initial fee to be a member, then the $10, the
Oh, it
right
was
to
$10. So it's 20 total. And
20 total.
then
Yeah.
they did them by bag. There's so many a bag. I think forget what it was. It was like $8 a bag. So if you could
Oh,
fit
what a
15 in
deal.
there.
What a
So
deal.
so to your point, and for the other people here. So if you're in a library sale, and they're insanely cheap. I mean, we're talking 50 cents or a quarter a book. Um, as long as many of us has been doing this. So Mike the used book guy used to have this really fun thing is where he would have 10 books and he would say, okay, guess if it's good or bad. And he would show the book. And then you'd be like, good. And then he'd scan it. Nope, nope, it's a turd, or nope, this is a home run. So now when I first started, he started doing that. I was horrible at it. Uh, got about 40% right. Well, so I saw another one that I hadn't seen before from a while back, and I did it, and I was at about 75%. So obviously, you see zillions of books over time. You get better and better at identifying what's good. So to that point, if you're at a library sale and they're like practically giving them away, don't and they're just like, well, you can't scan in here. Great, super, because then
Yeah.
so
But that's
especially
not the
if you've
library
been doing
sale
it,
over the mountain. They are
yeah,
expensive. They can
yeah.
be, yeah, but I hear you exactly. If they don't price every book individually and have
So
them,
if you're
yeah,
getting them a quarter a piece, for example,
yes.
then let's say in that bag scenario, let's say a whole bag you're spending $3, on 15 or whatever or more books.
A
Well,
book
and they don't have and they won't let you have a scanner. I don't care. Rock on. I've had to do that once. And of course, I had my share of ones that didn't work out, but I had a ton of them that did. About two-thirds of them were good. And the
Oh,
other thing is, when they're that cheap, they open a door to you that you normally don't have. Meaning, a book, let's say you paid a quarter for, and it's priced at 16.88 in the buy box. Well, typically, if you buy that book for $4 or $5, there's no way you're going to list it for 16.88. You won't make anything. But for a quarter, at say 16.88 or 17.88, in that little sweet spot area, you can make $5 or $6 off that book. So that opens a whole area. Now, the second library sale I went to, believe it or not, um, the books were free. It was 2 weeks after the opening, and I couldn't make it down there. So it was like they ran a Facebook ad saying all remaining books are free. So I got there, went through, took me about 3 or 4 hours of going through almost literally everything they had, and I walked out with probably somewhere around 100 books. Um, and now I did find three or four that were insanely profitable, like over $100. Three or four of those, but most of them were just all the bread and butter, sell for like $20. And so if you're a reseller and you're going there the first night and the books hardcover are $3 and paperbacks are a dollar 50. Well, you're not going to touch any of those books that are in that 1688 to 1888 for $3. So a lot of those get left behind. So I walk in, pay nothing, and do it for 1888, and I end up with like six, seven, $8 of profit on those books instead of it being. And I usually have a rule of thumb, unless the book is highly, highly profitable. I usually try at least to triple my money, a minimum profit of $5, and at least triple my money. That's usually what I go by. So if they're free, and they sell, and I can make $5 profit. I mean, that's just amazing. Um, so uh, so back to it. Friends of the Library sales. Find out if they have a night that's for Friends of the Library that's before the main sale. Uh, that is where you will crush it. So the one that I told you I was just at Friday. So it's first week of April here in the Panhandle, and it ended up snowing. So we ended up having like 6 inches of snow in April, which was insane. But it was wonderful because it kept all the people away from the sale. It was just, I was counting my blessings and
Yep.
stood up there and froze, but I was just like, there's nobody here. And so, second thing to look for uh, is find out. Now, I have been in several sales. When I used to live in Oklahoma City years ago, and I sold books on eBay, the Oklahoma City library had this huge sale. The sales I'm going to here in this general area, if you drew a circle around the Texas Panhandle, generally they're smaller sales, like I'd say 3,000, 4,000 or less books. So not huge. So this one in Oklahoma City was ginormous. I think it was like 100,000 some odd books. Well,
Same in
so they had an unusual thing. They would not allow you to become a friend of the library if you wanted to buy from there. What you had to do, you didn't pay to become a friend of the library. You had to work. So they would work you on a shift for 2 or 3 hours. And they'd say, like, okay, here's the fiction section. Start alphabetizing the whole so you're just sitting there, going through. So you work 2 or 3 hours. But a lot of people that ran a lot of people off because people weren't willing to lower themselves for 2 or 3 hours to do that. But when I got in there on that Friends of the Library sale, imagine 100,000 books nobody's looked at. It was just absolutely amazing. And so I would go in there but I had to do the work. They wouldn't let me just, oh, can I just buy a card? Nope. Yeah, if you want to get on the Friends, the only people they would accept were people that would physically work and help set up the sale. But man, gosh, it was just a gold mine. So,
But Jeff, once you worked, could you then scan the books? Is that what you're
yes,
saying?
yeah. So,
Is this
so I,
before the sale you could scan the books?
so I'm trying to think. So let's say they had the friend library part of it for 2 hours or 3 hours on a Thursday night. So you had to work a shift Monday through Wednesday to assist setting it up. And then you could come in there and scan all you want to your heart's desire. And
Before the sale?
before the sale. So
Oh,
literally, so this is a sale that's got close to 100,000 books. And
yeah.
literally, there's only maybe 40 people, 40 or 50 people tops in the whole thing looking at books.
Oh, wow.
So it was just an amazing opportunity. So on that note, find out too, especially it's not that big a deal on a smaller sale. If there's 2 or 3,000 books,
Now, this is 100,000, and they
yes,
restock every day until the last day or two of the sale in this like 8 or 9 day sale. They constantly put out new books.
Right.
It's
And
amazing. Do it.
yeah, yeah. And so if you are, so you'll have to find out the individual rules of the individual library, deal on occasion with some really quirky people. Another funny story, there's a small town that's about an hour from here that has a library. And once a week, no, I'm sorry, once a month, they have a library. It's a Friends of the Book type sale. It's a bookstore. And they only open it for like 3 or 4 hours once a month. They stock it up, they open it up. Well, so in kind of a funny quirk, I have a friend of mine that runs an estate sale company, and I occasionally fill in and help him. Well, I had helped him with an estate sale a month prior. So I go in there, and they didn't say anything about scanning or reseller. It's not being able to go in there. And so I'm in there scanning, just doing my thing. And, the lady approaches me and she goes, well, we typically don't sell to resellers. We just want the public to buy them. We don't like people to scan. And then she goes, oh, didn't you, weren't you working at Tommy Sue's sale a month ago? Yes, I was. Oh, yeah, I remember you. And she just shook hands with me. Yeah, da 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 da. Totally forgot about scanning and all that. It just totally slipped her mind. And I just sat there and scanned and to my heart's desire for another hour and a half. She didn't say anything to me after that. So,
Depends who you know.
yes, it can
You
be who you
got
know.
connections. You got connections.
Yes,
So
so it just you, now the good news as you go to these sales repeatedly, you learn the lay of the land, you learn the people you're dealing with, you'll learn how they put out books, you'll learn how they categorize them, all that different stuff. So you at that point, usually on your second or third time to go to that same sale, you have a huge advantage over the people that are first timers or just barely
I've got a
doing.
question for you,
Mm-hmm.
Jeff. Okay,
Uh-huh.
so the sale tomorrow, I'm going to the sale with 100,000, the people that are always putting out over the mountain. When you go to a big sale like that, where would you go first?
Uh, Interesting. You should say that. I have a few of these written down. So I would go. Now, I'm not to be very clear. I'm not saying that these are the quote most profitable categories. What they are categories that other people, even big booksellers, do not go to
Avoid.
first.
Yeah.
So, in other words, it's a area you can go to and virtually nobody's going to be there, at least for 20 or 30 minutes. You'll almost, even in a big sale, there may be just one or two other people. So, one I would go to is military history, specific about World War II and some Civil War books. Um, Even though we don't like the man and what he did, anything that has Nazi or Hitler on it, many times, or anything to do with the SS or any of the Hitler's underlings, those books will sell. So anything to do with Nazis, Hitler, to a limited extent, the Japanese, but then also some with generals, specific about generals. So that's I cannot tell you how many times I've cleaned up in military history. And there was one book sale I went to, and they all flocked. There was like 15 of them, and almost all of them went to two sections, just like piranhas, just started just chewing the whole thing up. And I walked by myself to military history, totally unbothered. And by the time I was done, I had about 40 books. All of them had a profit of over $10. Just bing. So right out of the gate, I'm profitable. So all those
Wow.
people can be piranhas all they want. I've already hit my home run. I'm good. Second one I would go to, as I mentioned earlier, uh, African American things, African American history, African American about African American entertainers, stuff like that. Many of those are going to be very profitable. Um, and people would say, well, isn't that the case? Because we had Black History on February. Now they literally sell year round. So that's another area. Of course, the Christian books that I mentioned, nobody hardly will go to those first. And so imagine you go in there and there's like 50 Bibles and you can just go through them real quick. Okay, da, 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 okay, nothing on the front, nothing handwritten, no highlighting. Good, boom. Go through them, the study aids, all that. Uh, Nobody literally is going to be looking at that. Another thing, crazy enough, and I know this is the one area where people are like, they're like, you know, you're crazy. But the same thing happened at this last sale in the snow of cookbooks. I went through cookbooks. Nobody's looking at cookbooks, and I got nearly 40 cookbooks out of it. All of them with at least $10 profit. Um,
Oh,
and so anyway, my total, I'm trying to remember. I got over 120 some odd books. I don't remember what it was exactly. I didn't count them. But they just did it by the sack, so I'm just guessing how many,
yeah.
approximately. And I did that in about a little over 2 hours. The other thing I would look at,
This is
uh,
so helpful. I have a different, but you have a you go to different areas that I don't usually go to. So this is really helpful.
I would, other things that you can be looking for, there are education books. Now, I'm not talking about specifically like what Joji does with high school textbooks or things
Okay.
like that. What I'm talking about is uh, education theory, especially education when it involves people who are disabled or have autism or things like that. A lot of times those books will be so, in other words, not broad education books, but very specific niched stuff,
Mm.
like how to set up a classroom for disabled children would be an
Wow.
example, or
Gotcha.
something that's really niche.
Mm.
I went through the education part of it, and I got probably 15 or 20 out of that. Um, so
Mm.
So there are a lot of, and then there's a couple other things I'd recommend that you do, not just you, everyone else. So I've gone through in that 2 hours, I've gone essentially through all the hot spots that I wanted to. Got, pretty much everything I, wanted to within reason. Other people got books, obviously, but so I'm walking out with 120 books. Yay. Very happy. So then that is the time as I'm winding it down. That's when I go to the books typically that I'm going to ignore, typically ignore until the very last. Those are like the fiction books, um, like Tom Clancy, nothing against Tom Clancy or any those type that, maybe somebody that's a collector, they've got a Tom Clancy collection and they wanted, Rainbow Six or whatever the, specific one. But a lot of times those will work well in sets. You can work those together in sets. Also, I've found, uh, believe it or not, some really good profit in science fiction. Now, most science fiction is, yes, it's science fiction to believe that any of them are profitable. I understand that because I've dug through those and just nothing. But there are some authors, Isaac Asimov. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Big seller. Uh, if you see sets of them together, that's also real good. Sadly, because the market's so flooded, anything to do with Star Wars or Star Trek, pretty much there's not much value. Very, very little value in those. But anyway, I go through all those, look around. And usually in that group, I'll get, maybe 15 or 20 books. It's like, oh, I need that book for that set. Or, yep, or that's part of a set that's hard to find. And I'll give you an example here. Hold on. So there's a set that is on, um, that's listed on Amazon. And in fact, I got two of them here. These are part of that set. There's 6 books. They're by Frank Peretti. He is uh,
Yes, Christian
a
author.
Christian author. These are 2 of the 6. So I have sold that set as a hardback set. I've sold that usually for averaging anywhere from $60 to $80 for the 6 of them.
Used, used
Used,
good, very good,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So this would be an example. So I'm looking at the ones most people have passed over on. I'm like, okay, looking for Frank Peretti, looking for this one, this one. So I'll go through. So Frank Peretti is one. The
But they're valuable as a set, not individually, right?
correct. And believe it or not, they're a dime a dozen. The Left Behind series. Um, there
Yeah,
are, if you have the entire set, which so there were 12 in the original 1 through 12, and then there's a 13th one, and then there were 3 that were they called pre one. In fact, hang on, I'm going to show. Hang on, I got to find this because it's worth showing to you if I can find it. Let's see here. Now, well, this is the Left Behind book. Everyone, if Behind Books has seen that. Um, what did I do with it? I just had it in my hand before we started. I don't see it. Anyway, there's 3 of them that were prequels, or afterwards. I forget how they put it. One of them is called The Rapture. Okay, the individual Rapture book is incredibly hard to find. It will sell individually uh, as a paperback. It'll sell usually for 30 or 35. I've seen the hardcover in good shape sell for as much as $50. It's part of that little 3 section. So, saying all that, so if you have all of those in paperback or hardback, you can sell them for $150 or more. I've done it. I sold one hardcover set for over $250. And
too
usually you can buy
expensive.
those you can buy those for at most estate
Yeah,
sales or whatever. People are happy to get rid of them. You can pay $1 a piece for them.
exactly.
So that's another example of, so just going through seeing, there are certain groups of Stephen King novels that if you look up Stephen King hardcover set, type that in, look, you'll see like, oh, there's a group of like 5 or 6 of them randomly. And so you go and look and you find that set and send those in. So anyway, that's how I conclude. I go there and look and see if there's anything that I'm looking for to complete a set or start a new one. Stuff that I know that'll sell.
So
And
this is merchant fulfilled. You're selling Frank Peretti, the 6 books. Isn't that's a lot to ship that? That's like more than $20 or something to ship it, right?
oh, it's not too bad. I do them FBA. Most of the sets, in fact, all of them I'm doing
You
FBA.
send the set in FBA.
Now, there's a little bit of trick here. This is free. Throwing this in for free. Learn this the hard way. So don't be like me. Learn the easy way, not the hard way. What you want to do is, if you have a large set like that, so that would be 12, 13, 16 books. Generally, you're better off, if it's going to sell for an amazing amount, like $150, $200 or more, you're better served shipping it in by itself. Yes, you'll probably pay 10 or $15 to ship it in. But what you need to do, you put it in one box, you seal it with the suffocation you know, plastic, uh, seal them all in that. And doesn't have to be all of them in one because that would be just ginormous, but like 3 or 4 individual ones. You put it in the box, seal it, and then you put the sticker, the actual their Amazon ASIN sticker on the inside of it, on the top, and on the outside of the box right near where they scan it. And put a sticker on there that says sold as set, do not separate. So because I did not put, and then when you do those 2 stickers, put clear tape over them so it doesn't get pulled off, uh, and put it at the top. So when they look at it, they're like, okay, this is a big set of books, doesn't need to be separated. And then they scan that individual ASIN.
It's in shrink wrap, right? You put it in
Yeah,
shrink wrap.
right.
Okay. And so
And
you've
then,
got ASIN for the set on the shrink wrap. You have the ASIN, the Amazon ASIN on the outside of the box also.
yes. So
Yeah.
that way I didn't have it on the outside of the box and they misplaced a set and I'm still fighting them over it.
Oh.
So if all I had done, if I'd just known to put the ASIN sticker on the outside as well, probably
And
would not have
this
this
is a,
problem.
on the outside of the box, this is a set
Right.
or,
There's
or
a green sticker you can get them. It says sold as a set, do not separate.
where do you
And
get the green sticker?
they are on Amazon. You can get them, they're real cheap. And
Okay. Jeff, I know here in the East Coast, it's 6 minutes after 9 and you started at 7:30 when I was on the other meeting. Good. This has been so wonderful. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Really, you go to different areas and I too, I do not go where all the sellers go after the lawyer books, after the law, after the, I, yeah, so I go, but I have a really short question. Have you ever had this
Sure.
experience? I never, it's very short. So today I have $127 profit that I will be paid, right? And then when I went to go to pay me, it's $100. And this has never happened in my experience with Amazon before. Have you had, I mean, what are they doing with the other $27? And it's been going on for about a week and a half now or less. Do you ever have that happen?
Now, explain it to me again. Run it by me one more
Okay, so
time.
I work a whole lot on my phone, and so I'm
Right.
repressing on my phone. Okay, and then I look at, I'm on the home screen. It was like $127, is in. Let me see if I can. Just a minute. Let me get there. Okay, you go down to the bottom of this screen, and I had 127 payments, $127 or something. So I went over to right on my phone, pay me. And so when I got paid $100, and
Mm-hmm.
it's been happening for about a week now that I've noticed that. Have you had that happen, or do you
Yeah,
get
okay,
it?
I know what you're talking about. So, like, I will start getting notices. Let's just throw out an even number so it's easy to talk
Okay.
about. So, let's say I have a payment due from Amazon for $1,000, meaning that would be them taking everything out, and $1,000 is less. Well, what they will do every 2 weeks, they'll they'll say, and I don't really understand this because they know how much is available, but they'll
What am
say,
I for?
so it might be a week before I would have gotten my full $1,000 check. They'll say, available now $720, and then you hit pay me. Well, you don't lose that, whatever, $200, $300. It doesn't just like vaporize. You'll eventually get paid it, but that feature is for people that want to get paid in advance, or maybe are stuck, or needing more, needing the money right now. I just ignore those. I just have gotten into the habit of, okay, I know it'll hit my bank on this day every 2 weeks. So
I apologize. I am so confused. It's so simple. I'm confused. Okay, because it's never happened before. Amazon is pulling money out like a savings account and putting it away somewhere. I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah,
lost.
well, I am too. I don't get the logic
Okay,
of it.
okay.
It's like, okay, you owe me like $1,000. Okay.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
they're going to, for the convenience of being paid a week early, they're going to take out 200 something dollars and pay that to me later at some
Oh,
point.
they think I'm, uh,
So think
oh,
of it as a good old fashioned bank fee, the handling fee and the processing fee and the, convenience fee and all that. That's
they're
basically,
charging us to take it out early,
yes.
Jeff,
No, not that $200, but I mean, that's why you're not getting the full amount. So,
but they're
but it's
not actually charging me because I didn't wait 5 more days to take it
no, in
out.
other words, it's like in my case, my scenario, it's not going to cost me $200, for
They will pay us, they will at some
pay us
point,
eventually, yes.
but
But
for some reason they're pulling, oh,
but yeah,
okay.
it makes no sense. Now I can understand, to be fair to them. So let's say you just got paid, and 4 days later you want your whole full thing, instead of waiting another 10 days or what. Yes, I understand in that scenario. That makes why they would say, okay, no, we're not giving you because people would abuse that instantly. They would wait 3 days, boom, pay me and get their full amount. So they want everyone to be on a 2 week rotation. So I get that. But um,
It's,
it,
it's interesting because I know I've heard Mike, the used book guy, say, big sellers often say, pay me every day. And because they have 2,000, they made $2,000 that day or something, and they say,
right.
pay me. People, they just do that. So, well, thank
Yeah, and
you.
you can set that up as well, as basically as it comes in. To me, I set that up very early on, and to me it was massively confusing and overwhelming. Meaning is like, okay, so one day I'm getting paid 50 and then I might not get nothing, hardly anything at all. Next day I'm getting 100 and then I'm getting 25 and so then it just became so confusing. So for me, I was like, pay me once every 2 weeks, and then it breaks down all the different fees. It says, okay,
Mm,
you paid this much for this much for this
mm.
much. That's how much we're withholding. Okay, and then here's your cut. So it's like, good, I can understand that. But trying
Thank
to
you. Okay.
decipher, like, if let's say in that period I sold 100 items and I have 100 different things hit my bank account, trying to, and then trying to decipher all that was just, I know there's people that do it and can do it and keep track of it. I'm not one of them. I was just like, I'm so confused and overwhelmed at this point. So I just went with the once every 2 weeks.
Got it. Thank you. I've never had this happen before, and it's quite a long before, but thank you for very, very much helping me understand that, which I don't understand, but thank you for helping me understand what I don't understand. Okay, thank you. I appreciate it
So
very, very much.
you're welcome. So to wrap it all up, um,
Tony works with Reselling Freedom, right? They always have someone
yes,
on. Yes, okay.
yes.
Because I was gonna say, did you want to ask a question? But I think yeah, she's doing her job
So
by,
yeah, so it's you, me, and Tony. We're holding up the flame. Yeah, and
yeah.
she put a little heart. Just put a little heart on the deal.
Hello,
So
Tony.
we're holding the flame here
Thank
on
you,
Tuesday
Tony,
night.
for being here for this long meeting. So thank you for
So
being so generous, Jeff. Really, really
well,
thank you.
not a problem. I the I would say in closing, as far as um, there are people in our group that are really all, pretty much all the people in our group are amazing. So I'm not saying some are and some aren't, but one guy I really admire tremendously is Mike, the used book guy. I
Same here.
followed him years ago. I mean, we're talking 4 or 5 years ago when he was very first starting out, and to now, and seeing the progress he's made. And he's also, when I was talking about earlier, we were talking about as far as mindset in library and estate sales, and how some people get what's called imposter syndrome, meaning they feel like I don't belong, or But the analogy I gave, if you look under bookseller in the dictionary, there's no picture, meaning there's not like, okay, this is a bookseller. Booksellers, like when I met at Books and Beyond, and then the meetup we had in Tulsa the year before, we had the biggest, most diverse group: men, women, black, white, Hispanic, young, old, highly educated, didn't get through high school. So you had this huge melting pot of all this. So there's not a quote unquote, bookseller. But anyway, Mike the used book guy is just very, there's two kinds of smart, and he's very smart anyway, but he's practically smart.
He's
He
street smart, big time
and
street
he
smart.
really understands.
And he can
uh
speak, he can teach. I've asked
yes.
questions to a lot of people and it just mumble bump. But when I ask Mike, he gives an answer and he
Yeah.
shows them tools with the computer. He brings it
Yeah.
up on the screen. He's a really good teacher. Yeah.
Yeah.
I,
So
yeah.
he's somebody I would take advantage of. And this is for people who may be watching this after the fact. Mike the used book guy. Now, Diane, of course, I went blank on her last name again.
Ashburn,
No,
Mashburn.
that's close.
It's Mashburn. It's Mashburn.
Mashburn, yes, Mashburn. I thought you said Ashley. I was like, no, that's not right.
No,
Yes, Diane
no.
Mashburn. I know her well. Visited with her. She has an earned PhD,
Yeah,
and she's brilliant. Now,
she's brilliant.
I said other people are smart. She's brilliant, but where that really shows is that shows in you could send her some question that's pretty complicated, and you could send it to me, and I'd be like, good luck. Hang in there. I have no clue or barely could address it. And she's like, oh, okay, well, in Seller Central, you go to page 7, go scroll down, 2 down, and then you highlight
No,
that. Then that
I
paragraph will explain that. Then you go to this other, and then, and so in like 2 minutes, she's explained something that's mega complex and just, it's amazing. So she's also somebody to take advantage of. I love Joji. I learned
yeah.
most of my Keepa uh,
From
knowledge through Joji, and he's been tremendous. There's also one other guy. Now, I'm not trying to exclude anybody. One other guy that is incredibly smart, and his name is Seth Cordick. He and
uh-huh.
a guy named Josiah do one
Uh,
together, and
yeah.
but they're not books, but they're doing more online arbitrage. Uh, I will say, and I've said it privately, but publicly, to thank him because he saved my business not once but twice. He's
That's good.
Yeah, Seth Cordick, with advice he gave me. Um,
Wow.
so
Wow.
Seth is like, to me, is like the Swami that's on top of the mountain, and you hike for days, crawl up there to get to the very peak. Oh, Swami, tell me. I mean, that's so. I had a situation where they and some people went through this as well. If you remember, they had the inventory limits, and they imposed that 2 or 3 years ago. Well, I had like 2,400 books, and they cut my limit down to 1,000, and I was just like stunned. And like everyone else, there are a lot of other people that were in the same mess. But anyway, so Seth was like, "Okay, here's what you're gonna do." Blah 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 blah, and I was just stunned. I had
What did you
actually
do?
was
What did you
do
do?
what?
What did you
So
do?
Well, he explained it. He said, so what you're going to do is you're going to take the majority of your books that are like $30 or less, 30 probably. You're going to mark them down to about $12, $13, and you're going to have a fire sale. You're not going to make much, but you need to get all as much as you can of those lower profit books out of the system, and then get under 1,000, so then you can start selling again. So that's
Gotcha.
exactly what I did. And He also, fortunately, I didn't have to do this, the advice he gave me, but it was and it's worth repeating. So, for some weird reason, my score, uh, the health score, got down lower than, got got right on the edge. When you look at the deal and you're in the yellow towards red. And part of that was because I had that big sale, that big fire sale, and I got rid of all those books. So that helped my score. My score went, whoop. Well,
Mm-hmm.
now I'm trying to get down to about 800 books. Well, most of those books that are left are profitable, but they're long tail and slower moving. And I wanted to hold on. I didn't want to just like a book selling for $80 normally. I didn't want to just get rid of it for 12 because that's, basically all my profits just disappeared. So now all of a sudden my books are slow moving and my score starts to fall. And so this is a little tip, and then we'll call it a night. And I said, so what am I gonna do? And just, simple as pie, matter of fact, in his Swami like deal, he goes, have you ever seen doing online arbitrage with Walmart items? And I was like, yeah, I have. I'm talking about buying clearance items at Walmart and selling them on Amazon. That's what I'm referencing, not selling on the Walmart platform. He said, so this is really easy to fix. He says, all you're going to do is you're going to go in there and research, and it might be wipes, it might be toothbrushes or whatever. You're going to go in there and find them when they're on sale, and then you're going to list them. And your
On
intention is
Amazon.
for stuff that will sell fast. You're not particularly concerned about profit, although you want to make money. So he laid out this little plan. He said, so if you'll buy 100 of those, and that'll sell really fast, and you might make $1 or two or most on them. If you'll do that for 1 month, you'll sell 100, 150 of those items. Your score will soar, and then your books that you've now sent in of that, to start filling
Fine.
in will start kicking in as well, and you're done. You'll and I was
No.
and I just sat there with my jaw open, like. But the
Yeah,
amazing thing was, I was like, I'm just like, you are so right. That is such an amazing thing, to come
solution.
up. But that's literally what I had. I had lunch with
You
Seth, and
went and bought toothbrushes and dental floss, or I don't know what, but
right.
something.
So if somebody happens to be listening to this and say, like, my score has gone way down and I'm struggling, there's your
And
answer.
they have
Hot
to listen for
from the
two
press
hours.
from Seth Cordick. That is what you do. But anyway, so I'll close with that. But anyway, so there are people that are teaching our group that are just
Just
of
how
all
did
different
you know?
backgrounds, but just amazingly
How did you know
sharp.
to talk to Seth? How did you know he's the man? He is the Swami. How do you know?
Well, so I was one of the original people. There was a group of us of about 20 people that were the original people that took Steve's eBay to Amazon course. So I was
Oh,
one of the original 20 that took that. And
oh,
he hosted some of those lessons. And
oh,
so one of the features of it was they would give you, it was included, you got 30 minutes of free, counseling or mentoring or whatever. Ask anything you want to. So I was like, so Seth was my mentor, and I said, okay, so this happened. What do I do? And he's like, oh yeah, that's easy. You just da 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 da.
um,
And I'm just like, what? So
yeah.
literally, it was that fast. And
No
then so
trauma. Just do this and do that and do that.
yeah, so I'm
Wow.
convinced, you know, if you ask Seth how to build some complicated weapon in your garage, he'd be like, okay, all you got to do, okay, you get the uranium from here, you're going to get this from here, and you're going to need a suit, a hazmat suit, and you're going to need, I mean, I'm convinced, I don't care
Reminds
what,
me. of
whatever you
diet.
throw at him, he's going to have the
Yeah.
answer to it. So
All
he's
righty.
and he's a good guy too. So really good guy. But
Awesome.
anyway, we will conclude with that. So the
Thank
three of
you.
us overcame. Yay! Thank you, Tony.
Thank
Thank
you. Thank you. Thank you
and
so much.
so
If they didn't give me,
I will be back in 2 weeks, and and that'll be regular now. So it'll be second and fourth Tuesday of each month. So
awesome. This has been really special. Really. I thought they canceled me because it said reselling freedom, you know, and it was, but there's a reselling freedom meeting like right now. What are we doing? So they canceled Jeffrey. He's not. And then here you are. So thank
you're
you.
right.
I hope other
And
people
so we
get
got to have our fun time, and you got to
come
ask
to this banquet
all the questions
table.
you wanted to. So
Thank
sounds
you.
great.
Brutus has had a
Well,
great, he's been here
Judith,
all
you have a good night.
bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you,
Thank
Jeff.
you, Tony. Thank you.
Good night. Bye-bye. So
Bye.
valuable. Thank you a lot.